Good afternoon, friends. So, in today's session, as we have decided to start the signal conversion types, so let us start. Before that, let me check whether I am audible to you all. Am I audible to you all? Okay. Okay. Great. So, in today's session, we basically decided to discuss on the different signal conversion types. So, we know that a computer network, it is designed to send the information from one point to other. It is necessary to convert this information either to the digital signal or analog signal for transmission purpose. Now this transmission is depending on what kind of transmission medium and the application. So based on that, the two concepts introduced before we start the types of signal conversion: encoding and modulation. So it is possible to encode any type of data into any type of signal. The concept of digital signaling, in which the input data, doesn't matter whether it is analog data or the digital data, it is encoded into digital signal, whereas the concept of analog signaling, in which the analog data or the digital data or the source, you can say, it is used for modulating a continuous time carrier signal to produce a analog signal, which is called as a modulated signal. Okay, so to transmit the analog or digital data in the form of analog signal, first we need to modulate that analog signal. And how do we modulate the signal? So we are using a carrier signal in order to modulate a analog signal. Okay, and this process of multiplexing a carrier signal with the original analog signal is called as modulation. Whereas what we can say, encoding analog data or a digital data into some digital signal is called as the encoding. Okay, so encodings, there are 4 different types of encoding, in fact. So there are 4 different possible transformation that we can see. So what are the 4 different possible transformation? That is the transformation of digital data to digital signal. This is first type, that is D to D, transforming or converting digital data to digital signal. Then transforming analog data to digital signal, that is A to D. Then transforming digital data to analog signal, that means D to A, and transforming analog data to analog signal. So these are the 4 different types of encoding that may possible. Okay, so the first 2 type, that is D to D and A to D. Okay, these 2 conversion types basically with respect to digital signaling. Okay, so what we are doing, D to D, what it represents, we are transforming digital data to digital signal, and A to D, what it means, we are transforming analog data to digital signal. So basically what we are transforming across the transmission medium, we are transforming digital data. In this in the latter 2 case, where we are transforming digital data to analog signal and analog data to analog signal, that means both this digital data and analog data, we are transforming them as a part of analog signal through the transmission medium. Okay, so basically these conversions are with respect to 2 signals. One is digital signal, in which both digital data and analog data will be transformed as a part of digital signal, and in latter 2 case, both digital data and the analog data will be transmitted as a part of analog signal. Okay, so let's first see the first transmission, that is digital transmission. Okay, that is digital to digital transmission. Okay, so in this section, we see how we can represent the digital data by using the digital signal. So this conversion involves the three techniques, basically line coding, block coding, and scrambling. But out of these three techniques, the line coding is always needed, whereas the block coding and scrambling, these two techniques, they may or may not be required as a part of digital transmission. Okay. So let us start with the first one, that is line coding and decoding. So line coding means what? Converting the string of ones and zeros, that is digital data, converting a digital data into a sequence of signals that denotes ones and zero. For example, a high voltage level, it could represent a data 1, and the low voltage level, it could represent a data 0. So in this figure, you can see that a data symbol can consist of number of data bits. Okay, so a data symbol, it can be coded into a single signal element or multiple signal element. Okay, and the ratio R is the number of data elements which is carried by the element. Now, what is the relationship between the data rate and the signal rate? Okay, so in this figure you can see that the digital data, which is in the form of 0, 1, 0, 0 and 1s, it has been transmitted, okay, through the transmission medium. But before we transmit it, we have encoded this digital data. Okay, so encoding is done to convert this digital data into a digital signal, and output of this encoder is the digital signal which we transmit through the transmission medium. Now at the receiver's end, we have the device called decoder, which actually decode this digital signal into digital data, right? So this is really, simple to understand. Now let us see signal element versus the data element. So what is the relationship between the data and the signal that we are going to see? So the data rate, it defines the number of bits sent per second, and it is often referred as the bit rate also. Whereas the signal rate is the number of signal elements sent in a second, and it is always measured in baud. It is really important to note here. The signal elements, the number of signal elements in a second is always measured in baud, and it is also referred to as the modulation rate. So the goal in digital transmission is to increase the data rate while reducing the baud rate. So in this figure, you can see that the first figure A, it has one data element and one signal element. That means one data element per one signal element. So one signal element, it holds only one data value. In the second figure, that is figure B, one data elements per two signal. So two signal are required, or two signal, they hold one data value, that is 1 or 0. In the third case, in figure 3, two data elements per one signal element is used. So that means one signal element, it holds two data values, that is 0 and 1. Okay, whereas in the last figure, the 4 data elements per 3 signals. Okay, so you can see here, these 3 signals, they are used, this one blue line, this second blue line, and this third blue line, they are used to hold the 4 data values, that is 1, 1, 0, 1, possible combinations of 0 and 1. Okay, so 4-bit data is held by using these 3 signal elements. Here, one signal element is used to hold the 2 data values, whereas here 2 signal elements are used to hold the 1 data value, and in this first figure, one signal element is used to hold the 1 data value. Then we'll go to the next. So before we proceed to the line coding and the different line coding schemes, first we need to understand this data rate and the baud rate. So as I already mentioned, what is the data rate? So the data rate, it defines the number of bits sent per second, and it is often referred as the bit rate. Whereas the signal rate, it is the number of signal elements which is sent in a second, and it is measured in baud. Okay, so the baud or the signal rate, it can be expressed as, yes, capital S, it represents the signal rate or baud rate, is equal to C into N into 1 divided by R baud, where N is the data rate or bit rate, the number of bits that we can send per second. C is the case factor in this case, and we have different cases. The first case is the worst case, in which the value of C is 0. The second case is the average case, where the value of your C, that is the case factor, is 1 by 2, that is 0.5. And the third case is the best case, in which the value of your case factor will be 1. R in this equation, it represents the ratio between the data element and the signal element. Okay, so how much data values have been held by the signal element, or how much signal element is required to hold the data value. That is what the ratio between the data element and signal element. So let us take one example. A signal is carrying the data in which one data element is encoded as one signal element, that is R is equal to 1, which is given to us. If the bit rate is 100 kilobits per second, what is the average value of the baud rate if C is between 0 and 1? Okay, so C, the case factor value C is given as between 0 and 1, and it is an average case actually. So average, when we know that the case factor value for the average case is always 0.5, right, or 1 by 2. So can you tell me the answer in the chat box? We supposed to calculate the baud rate. Yes, the value of S. So S is calculated as, can anybody give me the formula to calculate the baud rate? S is equal to C into N into 1 divided by R. So C, we have been given C. What is the value of C? So the baud rate or the signal rate, it is equal to C into N into 1 divided by R. So capital C's value is 1 divided by 2. N we have been given, that is 100 kilobits per second. You can transmit it into bits per second, then it will be 10,000. And the value of R is also given to us. So what it will be? It will be 5,000 bits per second, or you can calculate it as 50 kilobits per second. So given the value of bit rate, we can given the value of bit rate and the R, that is ratio of data element to the signal element is 1, that is one signal element holds the one data value. So we are supposed to calculate the baud rate, and the baud rate that we have calculated as 50 kilobits per second. Okay, So let us go to the next. Although the actual bandwidth of the digital signal is infinite, the effective bandwidth is always finite. So this is really important to understand. Now after this, we have seen some of the basics of line coding. Now we'll see what are the good characteristics of a line coding. Okay, so we have to consider or choose a good signal element which is referred to as a line encoding if it has some characteristics. So what are these characteristics that we are going to discuss now? So the first characteristic is the baseline wandering. So what is baseline wandering? In baseline wandering, a receiver will evaluate the average power of the received signal and use that power to determine the value of incoming data element. So baseline wandering is very important from the receiver's perspective. So if the incoming signal does not vary over a long period of time, then the baseline will drift and thus cause the error in detection of incoming data element. So that means if you have a DC component, okay, in the signal, if the voltage of your the signal which is carrying through the transmission medium, if it is constant, then in that case at the receiver's end some errors will be detected. So a good line coding scheme will prevent the long runs of the fixed amplitude. So we know that amplitude is always measured in volt. So that is the baseline wandering. Then the next point is the DC component. So when the voltage level remains constant for a long period of time, then there is an increase in the low frequency of the signal, and most channels are band pass and they may not support the low frequency. So this will require the removal of the direct current component, DC component of a transmitted signal. Now when this is possible, when your signal has a zero voltage level, then we will be successful to remove the DC component. Whenever your signal has a positive DC component or a negative DC component, when I say positive and negative, what it means is that your voltage level, it changes from 0 to 1, then it will be referred as a positive DC component. When your voltage level changes from 0 to -1, then it will have a negative DC component. Okay, and in both the cases, this positive DC component and the negative DC component, they are not preferred usually. Then what is preferable? The preferable is the change of your digital signal from positive to negative, okay, which gives me the 0. Okay, so in line coding, the signal with the non-zero DC component is treated as distorted one, and it can create the error in the received signal. So the signal with the DC component cannot pass through a transformer. Hence, the signal with the zero DC component are preferred. That is what I just mentioned. So over one cycle of period of waveform, if all the positive voltage they are cancelled by the negative voltage, then the DC component of your waveform is always have the 0 value. Okay, this is the second characteristic. So let's go to the next, that is self-synchronization. So in self-synchronization, the clock at the sender and receiver, they must have the same bit interval. If the receiver's clock is faster or slower, then it will misinterpret the incoming bit stream, and that is shown in this figure. So this two figure, it gives you the effect of lack of synchronization. You can see here clearly that whatever that sender had sent is not received at the destination stream. Okay, so sender had sent 1 bit data value per signal element, and what your receiver is receiving 2 data value per signal element. Oh, okay, or I would correct myself. This is actually 1 signal element. Okay, so here in this case, your data signal element, it contains two data values, that is 1 and 0 in per signal element, whereas at the receiver's end the signal contains three data values, 1 1 0 per signal element. So this happens due to lack of synchronization, the clock synchronization from the sender and the receiver's end. So we have to ensure that before we transmit any data or any signal, the sender and receiver's clocks should be synchronized. So let us take one example. So in a digital transmission, the receiver's clock is 0.1% faster than the sender's clock. Then we'll see what effect it will take. So how many extra bits per second does the receiver will receive if the data rate is 1 kilobits per second? And how many if the data rate is 1 Mbps? So for 1 kilobits, the receiver will receive 1001 bits instead of 1000 bits. So the extra bit that is received at the receiver's end will be 1 extra bit, 1 bit per second. Okay, if it is 1 Mbps, then receiver will receive 10 lakh 1000 bits per second instead of 10 lakh bits. So you can see here 1000 extra bits per second will be received at the receiver's end. Then the second characteristic of line encoding is the error detection. So error detection is what? The errors are occur during the transmission due to line impairment. We have seen what are the different reasons of line impairment. It may be distortion, it may be attenuation, it may be noise, and so on, right? So some codes are constructed such that when the error occurs, it can be detected. For example, a particular signal transition is not the part of the code. So when it occurs, the receiver will know that the symbol error is occurred. Then we'll go to the next characteristic of a line coding, that is noise and interference. So noise and interference are there in the line coding techniques that makes the transmitted signal immune to noise and interference. So this means that the signal cannot be corrupted if it is stronger than the error detection. So that is very important. Okay. So let's go to the next character, the last characteristics, that is complexity. So what complexity represents? Complexity is the more robust and the resilient part of your data transmission code. It is more complex. The more complex your code, the data transmission or encoding code, it is to implement, and then the price is often paid in a baud rate or the required bandwidth. So complexity, it is actually inversely proportional to your encoding technique, the line coding technique. If your line coding technique is more complex, then it will be very difficult to implement it. And we have to compensate the price in terms of baud rate and the bandwidth. Okay, so these are some characteristics of a line coding. Now let us move to the next topic, subtopic, that is the different line coding scheme. So in this figure you can see there are different line coding schemes: unipolar line coding scheme, bipolar line coding scheme, polar line coding scheme, and then bipolar line coding scheme, multi-level line coding scheme, multi-transition line coding scheme, and so on, right? So what it means, actually a line coding has a different strategies of encoding a digital data into a digital signal and then transmitting it through the transmission medium. So out of this 5 line coding scheme, the first 3 are very important. These are actually not required. So I'm skipping this last 2 line coding schemes. So we'll just, because if we look at the this scale of your topic, this conversion, signal conversion, we have 4 different types of signal conversion types, right? So looking at this, I'm just keeping the last 2 because they are not important. So let us go to the first one, that is unipolar non-return to zero line coding scheme. So in unipolar line coding scheme, all signal levels are on one side of the time axis, either above or below. Okay. So the first type of unipolar line coding scheme is non-NRZ. So what NRZ represents? NRZ, it represents non-return to zero scheme. Okay. So non-return to unipolar zero scheme is an example of what we just mentioned. That is, all the signal levels, they are on the one side of the time axis, either above the time axis or below the time axis. So that means we are not returning to zero. The signal level does not return to zero during a symbol transmission. So this scheme is prone to baseline rendering and the DC component. It has no synchronization or any error detection. It is very simple to implement, but costly in terms of power consumption. Okay, so that is very important to note that. Now let us say that what would be the unipolar line coding scheme, RZ line coding scheme. So the RZ line coding scheme will something like that, which has the change from positive voltage to negative voltage. Something like this it will represent. Let me take a pen so that I can explain you. So if my signal is something like this, then it will have the change from positive voltage to the negative voltage. Okay. So if I take the difference of this, if I take the difference of the change of the signal, then it will become 1 minus 1 will be 0. And such line coding scheme will be called as return to zero line coding scheme. Now this line coding scheme, and if I have the line coding scheme something like this, let me take a pen. For example, this is my amplitude, this represents amplitude, and this represents time. Okay. Then if my signal is something like this, then I would say that this line coding scheme will also be referred as unipolar non-return to zero scheme. Okay, because here the change is negative. The change in the signal element is negative. Okay, then let us go to the next one. That is polar is the next type of line coding scheme, polar line coding scheme. So in polar line coding scheme, the voltage are on both sides of the time axis. Okay, so polar NRZ scheme can be implemented with two voltages, like positive voltage for 1 and negative for 0. So this you can see it here. Okay, so this polar line coding scheme, it has two voltage level. This is positive and this is negative. Now the polar NRZ scheme, there are two versions. Okay, so this type of polar NRZ line coding scheme, it has two versions. The first version is non-return to zero level, where the positive voltage for one symbol and negative for the other symbol, so which is called as the NRZ L level. Okay, NRZ L. Whereas in the next figure, in this figure, you can see that this is the other version of polar NRZ, polar line coding scheme, which is called as NRZ inversion scheme. So in the scheme, there is a change or the lack of change in the polarity which determines the value of a symbol. For example, one symbol, it inverts the polarity 0, which does not. Okay, so you can see that there is an inversion in the signal levels. Okay, so dark circles, you can say that it is the inversion of the next bit. Okay, which gives the next bit to be 1, and you can see that the next bit is here 1. Here you can interpret it. Okay, if there is this type of inversion, then the next bit is 0, and you can find it here. Both these bits, they are 0. Again, at this there is a sudden change in the signal level. Okay, so now the inversion will be take place. Now the next bit will be 0. So this scheme is called as the NRZ inversion scheme, and this scheme is called as NRZ-L scheme. So remember, in NRZ-L scheme, positive voltage for one and negative voltage for other. Okay, so if this is 0, then this will be 1. If this is 0, then this will be 1. Okay, so at every signal element, okay, because we consider this as the signal element, right? So at every signal element there will be change in the voltage. Okay, it may be positive or negative. Whereas in inversion will decide what would be the next beat in my next signal element. Okay, so this is polar NRZ-L and NRZ-I scheme. So in NRZ-L, the level of the voltage determines the value of the beat, whereas in NRZ-I, the inversion or the lack of inversion determines the value of beat. So in NRZ-L and NRZ-I, both have an average signal rate of n/2 baud rate. Okay, so the signal rate in both the polar line coding scheme, whether it is NRZ-L or NRZ-I, the baud rate is, or the signal rate is always calculated as half of your bit rate. Okay, the number of data bits that you can transmit per second divided by 2. So n divided by 2 is the signal rate in both the cases. Then second type of polar line coding scheme is the polar return to zero scheme. So in polar return to zero scheme, we use 3 voltage level, that is positive voltage level, 0 voltage level and negative voltage level. You can see that we have used the negative voltage level here, we have used positive voltage level, and then we have also used the 0 voltage level and then the positive voltage level. So all these voltage levels are 3 voltage levels are used. So each symbol has a transition in the middle, either from high to 0 or from low to 0. So that means from positive to 0 or from negative to 0. So this scheme has more signal transition, that is 2 signal transitions per symbol, and therefore it requires a wider bandwidth. Note, it does not have any DC component or baseline wandering. Self-synchronization, in which the transition indicates the symbol value, and the polar return to zero scheme is very complex as it uses the 3 voltage level, and it has one more thing to note, that it has no error detection capability. I think we have not discussed the NRZ-L and NRZ-I, this case with respect to this DC component and all. So in NRZ-L, polar NRZ-L and NRZ-I, which we have seen in the previous slide, both have the DC component problem and the baseline wandering problem. Whereas we can see that the polar NRZ-L line coding scheme is more worst with respect to DC component and the baseline wandering problem. Now both the line coding scheme NRZ-L as well as NRZ-I, both this line coding scheme, they do not have any self synchronization and error detection capacity, and both are very simple to implement, and we can say that they are relatively simple to implement. Okay, so let us go to the next type of polar line coding scheme. So polar biphase, that is the next line coding scheme, in which we have polar Manchester line coding scheme, biphase line Manchester line coding scheme, and polar biphase differential Manchester line coding scheme. In my Manchester line coding scheme, the coding consists of combining the NRZL and RZ scheme, both return to 0 and NRZL of polar. Okay, in which every symbol has label transition in the middle from high to low and low to high, which which uses only 2 voltage levels, and that is shown here. Okay, so the transition of the signal is always at the middle. In differential Manchester coding, it is basically the combination of NRZI, that is in NRZ inversion, and return to 0 scheme. So in which every symbol has the level transition in the middle, but the level at the beginning of the symbol is determined by the symbol value. Okay, so one symbol causes a level change, the other does not. Okay, so symbol value, it will decide the change in the level of your signal. Okay, so this is basically the difference between Manchester and differential Manchester. So Manchester is a combination of return to 0 polar RZ and polar NRZL scheme, whereas the differential Manchester, it is a combination of NRZI and polar RZ scheme. So in Manchester and differential Manchester encoding, the transition is at the middle of the bit, which is used for the synchronization. The minimum bandwidth of the Manchester and the differential Manchester is 2 times that of NRZ, and there is no DC component and no baseline mandering problem in Manchester and differential Manchester line coding scheme. And none of these codes has the error detection capacity or capability. So let's go to the third type of line coding scheme, that is bipolar scheme. So in bipolar line coding scheme, which has 2 different types, AMI, amplitude modulation inversion, and the pseudo ternary, which uses 3 voltage levels, that is negative, positive, and 0, to represent the symbol. Note, no transitions to 0 as in return to 0. That is very important to note that. So voltage level for one symbol is at 0 and the other alternate between the positive and negative. Now in bipolar alternate mark inversion, okay, so AMI is basically alternate mark inversion. The 0 symbol is represented by 0 voltage and one symbol represents symbol 1, it alternates between the positive and negative, that you can see. Okay, so 0 bit, it is always represented by the 0 voltage, whereas the 1 bit, 1 data value, 1 bit value, it always lie in between positive and negative voltage. Okay. So pseudo ternary bipolar line coding scheme is exactly the reverse of AMI. Okay, in which the 0 bit will always lie from positive to 0 or negative to 0, but this data bit data value 1, it always lie at 0. So pseudo ternary is basically a reverse of AMI. So what is AMI? AMI is alternate mark inversion. Okay, so bipolar, these are the 2 bipolar scheme. So that's it from my end. So bipolar, it is a better alternative to non-return to 0 polar scheme. It has no DC component or baseline mandering. It has no self-synchronization because long runs of zeros result in no signal transitions, and it has no error detection facility, right? So that's it from my end. So as a part of this first lecture, we have completed the digital to digital transmission, digital data to digital signal transmission. In the next lecture, I will try to complete analog data to digital signal transmission, and then digital data to analog signal transmission. These two I will cover in next lecture. Probably I will take one more lecture after that to complete analog data transmission to the analog signal. So is it clear? So 50 is the right answer? Yes. So anything else? Problem in today's lecture? Please tell me if you have.
Yes, sir.
You can type in chat box also. Okay, Akshay is saying please share the notes. I will share these notes. Share in the I will notes in the form of presentation. I will share this presentation. Is it okay? Okay, sure. I will share this presentation. If you have any query, please let me know. Anyone? Any queries? Share ebook as well. Okay, I will share the ebook as well. No problem. So by the end of today evening, you will get the presentation so far we have took, and as well as ebooks on the Moodle course. Remember, I will upload everything on the Moodle. Okay, so I will consider that there is no problem for today's topic, that is digital transmission, and the first transformation encoding technique, that is transforming digital data to digital signal. Okay, thanks a lot for patiently listening. In tomorrow's live session, we'll talk about the transformation of analog data to digital signal. So have a great day ahead, and you can end this meeting now.